The starship appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's deep space sensors showed nothing but the usual cosmic background radiation. The next, a vessel larger than any human construction hung in high orbit, its obsidian surface drinking in sunlight like a black hole. Within hours, 4 more vessels materialized, arranging themselves in a perfect pentagonal formation above Earth's major population centers. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at her station in the Global Defense Initiative's main command center, her dark eyes fixed on the readings flooding her holographic displays. As the GDI's lead xenophysicist, she had spent her career preparing for first contact. But nothing in her decades of research had prepared her for this. Energy signatures are off the charts, she announced to the room of military and civilian leaders. Their power generation capabilities exceed our most advanced theoretical models by several orders of magnitude. General Marcus Rodriguez, the graying commander of Earth's unified defense forces, leaned forward in his chair. Weapons capabilities. Unknown, but given their power output. Sarah's voice trailed off. The implications were clear enough. The room fell silent as the main screen flickered to life, displaying a figure that seemed to defy the laws of biology. The alien stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body covered in what appeared to be living metal that shifted and flowed like mercury. Its face was a smooth mask with no discernible features except for 3 glowing purple eyes arranged in a triangle. People of Earth, the being's voice resonated through every electronic device on the planet simultaneously, translated perfectly into all human languages. I am Sovereign Executor Vexthor of the Zarkeli Empire. For 10,000 cycles, we have brought order to the chaos of the galaxy. Your world has been chosen to receive our greatest gift, the privilege of submission. The alien's tone carried no malice, only absolute certainty. You will surrender your sovereignty, your resources, and your technology. In return, you will be elevated from your primitive state and given purpose within our grand design. This is not a negotiation. You have 24 of your hours to prepare your formal submission. Resistance is. The being paused, as if searching for the right word. Inefficient. The transmission cut off, leaving the room in stunned silence. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. The Zarkeli's technology was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. Their ships could likely reduce the planet's surface to glass before any meaningful defense could be mounted. By any rational calculation, submission was the only logical choice. But humans had never been entirely rational creatures. General Rodriguez stood slowly, his weathered face set with determination. Get me a secure line to every major world leader. Now. Within minutes, the screen split into dozens of windows showing the faces of humanity's decision-makers. Despite their different cultures, languages, and ideologies, every face shared the same expression: defiance. Ladies and gentlemen, Rodriguez addressed the assembled leaders. I know what you're thinking. We're outgunned, outmatched, and probably looking at the end of human civilization as we know it. But I'm looking at something else right now. I'm looking at the history of our species. He gestured to a holographic display of Earth. Every time we faced extinction, whether it was ice ages, plagues, or our own weapons, we've survived. Not because we were the strongest or the most advanced, but because we refused to accept defeat. The Zarkeli think they know what humanity is. They see our technology, our divided nations, our conflicts, but they don't understand what makes us human. Sarah felt a surge of pride as Rodriguez continued. We're the species that looked at the impossible and said, watch us. We're the ones who dreamed of flight and built wings. We saw the stars and made machines to reach them. Every major advancement in human history came because someone looked at the impossible and decided to try anyway. The Chinese premier spoke first. What you're suggesting is suicide. Maybe, Rodriguez acknowledged. But it's our choice. The moment we submit, we stop being human. We become pets, slaves to an empire that sees us as nothing but resources to be exploited. I say we show them exactly what they're dealing with. One by one, The world leaders voiced their agreement. Sarah watched in amazement as ancient enemies pledged to fight together, as nations that had been at each other's throats for generations united against a common threat. When the last leader had spoken, Rodriguez turned to Sarah. "Dr. Chen, I need options. They have better weapons, better shields, better everything. But they don't know humans. Find me something they've overlooked, something they never thought to defend against because they never imagined anyone would try it." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing through possibilities. The Zarkali's technology was advanced, yes, but it still had to operate according to the laws of physics. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding loopholes in seemingly unbreakable laws. As she rushed to her laboratory, Sarah felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. The next 24 hours would determine the fate of humanity. But for the first time since the alien ships appeared, she felt something else. Hope. Because the Zarkali had made a crucial mistake. They had given humanity a choice between submission and extinction, never considering that humans might choose a third option: to fight back with everything they had, to stand defiant in the face of impossible odds, to show the galaxy that the human spirit could not be measured by the size of their ships or the power of their weapons. The clock was ticking. Earth had 24 hours until the Zarkali expected their surrender. Instead, they would get a lesson in what it truly meant to be human. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't slept in 18 hours. The laboratory around her hummed with activity as the world's brightest minds worked against an impossible deadline. Holographic displays filled the air with cascading data, each screen showing a different aspect of the Zarkali ship's energy signatures. "There's something wrong with these readings," Sarah muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. She stood before a three-dimensional representation of the alien vessel's power fluctuations. "Dr. Patel, are you seeing this?" Across the room, Dr. Arun Patel looked up from his own work. The quantum physicist had been analyzing the same data for hours, trying to understand how the Zarkali ships maintained their seemingly perfect energy efficiency. "The harmonic resonance patterns," he asked, moving to join her. "They shouldn't be possible." "Exactly." Sarah manipulated the hologram, expanding a particular section. "Their power generation is too perfect. No system should be able to maintain quantum coherence at this scale without." She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. The realization hit her like a physical force. "Get me General Rodriguez. Now." Minutes later, the general's face appeared on the main screen, looking as exhausted as Sarah felt. "Please tell me you have something, Dr. Chen. The Zarkali's deadline is in 6 hours." "Sir, we've been looking at this all wrong," Sarah said, her words rushing out. "We've been so focused on how advanced their technology is, we missed something fundamental. The Zarkali aren't just using advanced technology. They're using perfectly tuned quantum fields to maintain their power systems." Rodriguez frowned. "In English, Doctor." Dr. Patel stepped in. "Think of it like a perfect musical note, General. The Zarkali ships maintain their power through quantum harmonics, everything vibrating at exactly the right frequency. It's incredibly efficient, but it's also incredibly vulnerable." Sarah finished. "Any system that dependent on precise quantum coherence would be catastrophically vulnerable to disruption, like a singer hitting a note that shatters a wine glass." Understanding dawned in Rodriguez's eyes. "You're saying we can hurt them?" "More than that," Sarah replied, pulling up new simulations. "Their entire technological base depends on maintaining these quantum fields. Their weapons, their shields, even their faster-than-light drives. It's all connected through quantum entanglement networks. If we could generate the right kind of interference pattern, we could shut them down." Rodriguez finished. "How long to develop a weapon?" Sarah and Arun exchanged glances. "That's the thing, sir," Sarah said. "We already have one. Sort of." She brought up schematics for Project Unyielding, a classified research program that had been exploring quantum disruption technologies for next-generation warfare. We've been developing quantum pulse generators for years. They were meant to disable enemy electronics, but with some modifications. How many can we build in 6 hours? With every manufacturing facility on Earth working together, maybe enough to mount on our major defense platforms. But sir, there's a catch. Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. To generate a disruption field strong enough to affect their ships, we'd need to detonate multiple devices simultaneously, in perfect synchronization. The timing would have to be precise to the microsecond. And, Rodriguez prompted, and we have to get close. Really close. Their ship's natural quantum fields would protect them from long-range attacks. We'd need to deliver the devices practically inside their defense perimeter. The general was silent for a long moment. How many ships would we lose? If it works, most of them. If it doesn't, all of them. Rodriguez nodded slowly. I'll speak with the Coalition Council. Get me everything you need. Personnel, resources, whatever it takes. If we're going to die, we're going to die fighting. As the general's image disappeared, Sarah turned to her team. The room had gone quiet, everyone understanding the gravity of what they were about to attempt. We have 6 hours to save humanity, she announced. Let's make them count. Around the world, manufacturing facilities shifted into overdrive. Space launch platforms that had stood dormant for years roared to life. Military personnel prepared for what might be humanity's final battle. The plan was simple, if suicidal. While the world's remaining nuclear arsenal would serve as a distraction, small, fast ships would carry the quantum pulse generators into the heart of the Zarkeli fleet. In her lab, Sarah worked frantically to refine the disruption patterns. Each calculation, each simulation brought them closer to their goal, but also revealed new complications. The Zarkeli's quantum networks were incredibly complex, with layers of redundancy and protection they were only beginning to understand. 5 hours before the deadline, as she reviewed the final calculations, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Linda Martinez, her wife of 15 years, stood in the doorway of the lab, holding their daughter's favorite stuffed animal. Maya wanted you to have this, Linda said softly. For luck. Sarah took the worn teddy bear, her throat tight. Their 12-year-old daughter was in a bunker somewhere in the Rockies, along with millions of other civilians. Tell her, she swallowed hard. Tell her mom's working on something amazing. Linda stepped forward, embracing her. You'll tell her yourself, she whispered fiercely. You'll tell her how you helped save the world. As Sarah held her wife, she thought about all the families across Earth, all the lives hanging in the balance. The Zarkeli thought they were dealing with primitive beings who would choose submission over extinction. They were about to learn that humans had a third choice, to stand and fight, not just for survival, but for the right to determine their own destiny. The teddy bear sat on her workstation as she made her final adjustments to the quantum pulse generator's frequencies. In less than 5 hours, humanity would either make history or become history. Either way, they would face their fate on their feet, defiant to the last. Commander Maya Santos sat in the cockpit of her strike fighter, watching the final countdown tick away on her heads-up display. In the darkness of space, Earth's last fleet waited in the shadow of the moon, hidden from the Zarkeli sensors by a combination of stealth technology and strategic positioning. Strike team. Final systems check, she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. One by one, the pilots of the 20 specialized fighters reported in. Each craft carried a modified quantum pulse generator, the product of humanity's desperate innovation. Control, this is Strike Leader. All units report ready. Maya's words echoed through the encrypted comm channel. Confirmed, Strike Leader. General Rodriguez's voice replied from the underground command center. Dr. Chen reports quantum synchronization is holding steady. You are clear to proceed. Maya took a deep breath, glancing at the small photo taped to her console, her wife and young son, smiling at a beach somewhere that felt like a lifetime ago. Remember your training, she addressed her team. Straight in, straight out. Time on target is everything. If the quantum pulses aren't perfectly synchronized, this whole thing fails. The countdown reached 0. Strike team. Execute. 20 fighters burst from the moon's shadow, their experimental engines pushing them to speeds that would have torn apart conventional aircraft. Behind them, Earth's remaining military forces launched their diversionary attack, filling space with missiles, drones, and every piece of military hardware humanity could muster. In her laboratory, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the operation unfold through a wall of holographic displays. Each showed a different aspect of the battle: fighter positions, quantum field measurements, Zarkali ship movements. Her fingers danced across control surfaces, making minute adjustments to the quantum pulse generator's frequencies. Energy spike. One of her technicians called out. The Zarkali ships are powering weapons. The alien vessels moved with impossible grace, their smooth hulls rippling as weapon ports opened. Beams of coherent energy lashed out, swatting Earth's conventional forces aside like insects. But that was exactly what humanity had counted on. They're taking the bait, Sarah whispered. Strike team, you have your window. Make it count. Maya's fighter led the attack formation through the chaos of battle. Around her, Earth's military forces were being decimated, but they were buying something precious: time and distraction. Her tactical display showed the optimal approach vector, threading between the Zarkali's defense screens. 30 seconds to optimal range, she announced. Quantum synchronization holding steady. The Zarkali finally seemed to notice the small group of fighters heading directly for their command ship. Energy beams swept space, trying to intercept the approaching craft. 2 fighters exploded in silent balls of fire, then 3 more. Stay on target, Maya ordered, her voice tight. Whatever happens, we have to reach that ship. In the command center, General Rodriguez watched the battle unfold with growing tension. Status of the quantum pulse generators. Synchronization at 98%, Sarah reported. But we're losing fighters. If too many go down before they reach position. They'll make it, Rodriguez said with quiet certainty. Because they have to. Maya's fighter shuddered as a glancing hit from an energy beam scorched its hull. Warning lights flashed across her console, but she ignored them. They were almost in position. The massive bulk of the Zarkali command ship filled her view, its surface rippling with quantum energy fields that made it look almost alive. 10 seconds, she called out. All units, final approach. Quantum generators to full power. The remaining fighters formed up around her, each taking their precisely calculated position. The Zarkali ships seemed to realize something was wrong. Their attacks became more focused, more desperate. But it was too late. Now, Maya screamed. 15 quantum pulse generators activated simultaneously, their carefully tuned frequencies combining into a single devastating wave of disruption. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Maya watched in awe as the perfect quantum harmonics of the Zarkali ships began to break down. It started as a ripple across their hulls, like water disturbed by a stone. Then the ripples became waves, and the waves became chaos. The living metal of their ships began to lose cohesion as quantum fields collapsed and energy systems failed. It's working. Sarah's voice cracked with emotion as she watched her readings. Their quantum networks are collapsing, all ships showing catastrophic system failures. The massive Zarkali vessels, once so graceful and powerful, now drifted helplessly in space. Their weapons fell silent, their shields vanished, and their once perfect surfaces became dull and lifeless. But the human fighters weren't unscathed. The quantum pulse had affected their systems too, despite their shielding. Maya's fighter tumbled through space, its engines dead, its controls unresponsive. Strike team, report in, she called, fighting to keep her voice steady as her craft spun slowly end over end. One by one, the surviving pilots responded. Less than half had made it. But as Maya watched the dead hulks of the Zarkali ships floating against the star-filled backdrop of space, she knew their sacrifice had been worth it. "Control, this is Strike Leader," she transmitted. "Operation Thunderstrike. Successful. The Zarkelli fleet is disabled." In the command center, the cheers were deafening. Sarah collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face as the magnitude of what they'd accomplished hit her. They had done it. Humanity had fought back against an seemingly invincible enemy and won. But even as the celebration began, General Rodriguez's expression remained grim. "Get rescue ships launched immediately," he ordered. "Recover our pilots, and someone get me a secure channel to that Zarkelli command ship. I want to have a word with Sovereign Executor Vexthor about the meaning of primitive." The battle was over, but the war might just be beginning. Yet for the first time since the alien ships had appeared in Earth's sky, humanity had hope. They had proven that even the most advanced technology could be defeated by human ingenuity, courage, and the unwavering will to remain free. The victory celebration lasted exactly 6 hours. That's when the long-range sensors detected the second wave of Zarkelli ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. This time, there weren't just 5 ships. There were 500. In the GDI command center, General Rodriguez studied the tactical display with a grim expression. "They've adapted their quantum fields," Dr. Sarah Chen reported, her voice tight with exhaustion and worry. "The frequency patterns we used in Operation Thunderstrike won't work again. They're using a rotating quantum harmonic system now." "Of course they are," Rodriguez muttered. "They're not used to having to adapt. We probably wounded their pride more than their military capability." He turned to the assembled staff. "Options. We could try to modify the quantum pulse generators," Sarah suggested, but her tone made it clear she didn't believe it would be enough. "But they'll be expecting that. And with their new shielding." "Sir," a young lieutenant interrupted, his face pale. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel." The main screen flickered to life, showing not the familiar form of Sovereign Executor Vexthor, but something far more imposing. The being that appeared was easily twice the size of Vexthor, its living metal form rippling with barely contained energy. When it spoke, its voice seemed to resonate through the very walls of the command center. "I am High Archon Zarkalon," the being announced. "You have committed an unprecedented act of defiance against the Empire. Your primitive deception succeeded against a mere expeditionary force. Now you face the true might of the Zarkelli." The alien's 3 eyes blazed with purple fire. "There will be no more offers of submission, only extinction." The transmission cut off. Moments later, the Zarkelli fleet began to move, spreading out in a formation that would allow them to bombard every major population center on Earth simultaneously. "They're not even bothering to demand our surrender this time," Commander Maya Santos observed from her position near the tactical display. She had been one of the few pilots recovered after Operation Thunderstrike, and her insights into the enemy's tactics were invaluable. "Because this isn't about adding Earth to their empire anymore," Sarah realized. "We didn't just refuse to submit. We proved they weren't invincible. If word of that spreads to other subjugated species, we become an example." Rodriguez finished. "One they can't afford to let survive." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They had bought Earth 6 hours of freedom, but at what cost? The Zarkelli would not rest until humanity was erased from existence, a cautionary tale for any other species that might dare to resist. But something strange was happening in the command center. Instead of despair, the faces around the room showed determination. Humans had tasted victory against impossible odds, had proven that the mighty Zarkelli could be beaten. That knowledge changed everything. "Dr. Chen," Rodriguez said suddenly, "you said their quantum fields are rotating now." "Yes, cycling through frequencies to prevent us from disrupting them like before." "Why?" "Because rotation implies a pattern." He turned to the tactical display. "And patterns can be predicted. Maya, how many of our quantum pulse generators survived?" 3, sir. Not nearly enough to affect their fleet." "Maybe we don't need to affect their whole fleet." Rodriguez's eyes gleamed with the light of inspiration. Sarah, what would happen if we detonated a quantum pulse generator inside a Zarkali ship right next to their main power core? Sarah's eyes widened as she ran the calculations in her head. The quantum feedback would be catastrophic. It would cascade through their entire system. But sir, their defenses are even stronger now. We'd never get close enough. We won't have to. Rodriguez turned to a different screen, showing a project that had been classified even from most of the GDI leadership. Dr. Chen, what do you know about quantum entanglement teleportation? Sarah's breath caught as she understood. Project G-Host. But sir, it's completely experimental. We've never successfully teleported anything larger than a few molecules. Until today. Rodriguez activated another screen, showing a hidden facility deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Because today, we're going to teleport 3 quantum pulse generators directly into the heart of their command ships. The room erupted in a flurry of activity as the implications became clear. The Zarkali's advanced quantum fields made their ships nearly impenetrable from the outside, but those same fields would make them catastrophically vulnerable to an attack from within. It's insane, Maya said, but she was smiling. They'll never expect it because no primitive species should be capable of it. Exactly. Rodriguez turned to Sarah. Doctor, you have 2 hours to make this work. Maya, I need you to coordinate with what's left of our fleet. We'll only get one shot at this. As the command center transformed into a hive of desperate activity, Sarah found herself thinking about the teddy bear still sitting in her lap, the good luck charm from her daughter. The Zarkali thought they were dealing with primitives, with beings so far beneath them that they couldn't possibly pose a real threat. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that humanity's technology defined their capabilities. They hadn't understood that humans' greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their ships. It was in their ability to imagine the impossible and then find a way to make it real. The High Archon had promised extinction, but humanity had other plans. Because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was surviving despite all odds. And now they had 2 hours to prove it once again. Time seemed to move differently in the Antarctic facility's quantum lab. Dr. Sarah Chen worked frantically at her station, surrounded by equipment that represented the bleeding edge of human scientific achievement. Project Ghost's massive quantum entanglement array hummed with power, its experimental systems pushed far beyond their design limits. Quantum coherence at 87%, Dr. Paddle reported from his station. If we go any higher, the containment field could collapse. We need 95% minimum for successful teleportation. Sarah responded, her fingers flying across the holographic controls. Reconfigure the field harmonics. Match them to the Zarkali's rotation frequency. Above them, the battle had already begun. The Zarkali fleet had launched its attack, their advanced weapons tearing through Earth's remaining defenses like paper. Only the desperate maneuvers of pilots like Maya Santos kept them from immediately reaching their targets. In the command center, General Rodriguez watched the tactical display with steel in his eyes. Status of Project G-Host. Final calibrations in progress. Sarah's voice came through the comm. Sir, there's something else you should know. When we teleport the quantum pulse generators, the energy release, it's going to be massive. If we're successful, the quantum cascade will spread through their entire fleet. The blast radius. Pause. Half the solar system. Rodriguez closed his eyes for a moment. Can we get our ships clear in time? No, sir. Not all of them. The general nodded slowly. He had already suspected as much. Commander Santos, did you copy that? In her fighter, Maya executed a desperate evasive maneuver as Zarkali energy beams filled space around her. Copy that, sir. We knew this was a one-way trip when we launched. She switched to the squadron frequency. All units, push them back. By the science team every second we can. The remains of Earth's fleet fought with desperate courage, using every trick and tactic they had learned from their previous encounter with the Zarkali. They couldn't win, but they could delay, distract, and most importantly, position the enemy ships exactly where they needed them to be. In the quantum lab, Sarah made her final adjustments. The 3 quantum pulse generators floated in the containment field, their structures already beginning to phase between dimensions as the quantum entanglement effect took hold. Quantum coherence at 92%, Arun announced. It's not enough, but it's all we're going to get. Sarah's hands hesitated over the controls. At 92%, the chances of successful teleportation were less than 20%. If they failed, Earth would have no defense against the Zarkali's onslaught. Then her screen lit up with an incoming transmission. It was Linda, her wife, holding their daughter Maya's hand. They were in one of the deep bunkers, but Sarah could see the fear in their eyes. And the trust. "Mom," her daughter said simply, "you can do it." Sarah took a deep breath, thinking of all the families across Earth, all the people counting on them. The Zarkali thought humanity would break under pressure. They didn't understand that pressure was what had forged humanity into what it was. "General," she called, "we're ready." Target coordinates locked on their command ship's power cores. "Execute," Rodriguez ordered. Sarah's fingers danced across the controls one last time, making microscopic adjustments to the quantum fields. In her mind, she could see the equations, the probabilities, the countless ways this could fail. But she could also see something else, the entire history of human achievement, built on moments exactly like this. Moments when success wasn't just unlikely, it was impossible. "Quantum teleportation initiating," she announced. 3, 2, 1. She pressed the final control. For a moment, nothing happened. The quantum pulse generators shimmered in their containment field, their structures becoming increasingly transparent as the quantum fields built to impossible levels. Then they vanished. In space, Maya's sensors suddenly lit up with massive energy spikes from 3 Zarkali command ships. Energy surge detected. There, the first explosion was like a new star being born. The quantum cascade reaction tore through the command ship's power core, releasing energy on a scale humanity had never witnessed. The ship's perfect quantum fields, the very source of its power, became its undoing as the disruption spread at faster than light speeds through their quantum entanglement network. One by one, the Zarkali ships began to explode, each destruction feeding energy into the cascade. The High Archon had just enough time to transmit one final message, his voice filled with something humans had never heard from a Zarkali before. "Fear. What are you?" The quantum cascade reached critical mass. Space itself seemed to twist and distort as the accumulated energy of 500 quantum cores released simultaneously. The flash was visible from Earth, a new constellation of artificial stars marking humanity's desperate gambit. In the command center, screens flickered back to life after the electromagnetic pulse passed. "Status report," Rodriguez demanded. "Zarkali fleet. Destroyed, sir. Completely." The quantum cascade reaction exceeded all theoretical models. Sarah's voice was thick with emotion. "But our ships. 30% of our forces made it to minimum safe distance," a technician reported. "Commander Santos is exactly where she chose to be," Rodriguez finished quietly, "along with every other pilot who gave their lives to make this possible." As the dust settled and the full magnitude of what had happened began to sink in, something unprecedented occurred. The quantum communications array, designed to monitor Zarkali transmissions, began picking up new signals, not from the Empire, but from other species, other worlds that had lived under Zarkali domination. They had been watching. They had seen a primitive species do the impossible. And now, they wanted to talk. In her lab, Sarah finally allowed herself to collapse into her chair. They had won, but the cost had been enormous. Yet as she watched the communications pour in from across the galaxy, she realized they had achieved something even greater than victory. They had shown the galaxy that tyranny wasn't invincible, that technology wasn't everything, and that the determination to remain free was the most powerful force in the universe. The Zarkeli Empire had ruled through fear and the assumption of their own superiority. In the end, they had been defeated not by superior weapons or advanced technology, but by the one thing they had dismissed as irrelevant: the human spirit. As the sun rose over a free Earth, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had proven themselves not just to the galaxy, but to themselves. And now, as the dawn of a new era beckoned, they were ready to take their place among the stars, not as subjects, but as equals. The age of human ascendancy had begun.